and welcome to the Unhinged History Podcast, the podcast where two friends come together and tell history stories while adding chock full of conversation and really just deride anybody who's here for a straight story because we're going to chat about it. Why? Because we're friends. And I've never heard the story that Angie's about to tell me, and she has no idea what I'm about to tell her. So there will be some conversation back and forth.
That was your warning. That's all you get.
Yeah. So when we check the episode notes on Spotify or the reviews and we hear, would be great, but there's a lot of chatter. That's what we signed up for.
Literally why we did this.
So listener beware.
You had your chance.
Yeah.
I'm Angie.
I'm Theresa. I think I said that already.
Did you? Oh,
Yeah.
well,
I mean, what? We're 137 episodes in and we've nailed the introduction.
every single time. I get to go first today.
Hell yeah. Now, last week you started telling me about this broski named Paddy Mane,
I
who
sure did.
really sounds like a soap opera character.
With a name like that, yeah. Now that you say that, yeah. We're still talking about Paddy Mane. We got Paddy Mane for like a few more episodes on my part. Um, because his life was just amazing. So, my sources are the same sources they were last week.
Do you want to repeat
Um,
them just in case we have new listeners or
sure, yeah.
people like
Okay,
me who can't
so
remember if they ate breakfast and had their medicine?
so I haven't eaten breakfast yet. There are three books, all by Damian Lewis. One is Brothers in Arms, Churchill's Special Forces during World War II's Darkest Hour, SAS Forged in Hell, and SAS Daggers Drawn. Like I said, all by Damian Lewis. The of the three books, the book most referred that I most refer to in this episode is Brothers in Arms, Churchill's Special Forces. Um, there is a really great biography by Hamish Ross called Paddy Mane. Super, I could not recommend that enough. And then this week I have a couple of other sources. Brave, brutal, and misunderstood, Paddy Mane, the daring Irishman who pioneered the modern SAS. This is from an article in the Irish Post by a guy named Michael Murphy in November of 22. And then there is Commando, Paddy Mane, Ireland's Wolf of the Desert, Werewolf, Warfare History Network.
Well, this tone of the story changed dramatically. I kind of wanted some lycanthropy.
So, so sorry. But you know what? Honestly, he's big enough, so if you just want to imagine that, go for it. What I do find to be particularly interesting is that the Warfare History Network refers to him as Ireland's Wolf of the Desert. He refers to himself as the Desert Rat, but the rest of the world refers to him as an Irish lion. Um, and the reason that they do that is partially because of just him in general, but also because when he went on the world tour in his rugby, he played for the British Lions.
Okay.
Um, so last week, if you weren't listening last week, I covered his youth and his time on the rugby pitch. I learned that he was capped for Ireland 6 times. I feel like that's important to say because I think I gave you a different number.
And
Um,
capped is put on the national team, just for those who, again, didn't listen last week and are just like capped, like shot.
what the heck does that mean? Yeah, he's got a feather in his cap. I feel like it's important to say that it was 6 times because he was a proud Irishman, and there are tons of other proud Irishmen out there that I am not trying to offend. So, capped 6 times for Ireland, confirmed. So, I thought I would tell you this week a little bit about his early military career. So, remember, just like a little rewind. He played rugby. He went to school to become a solicitor, which is a lawyer, and it's 1938, 1939, the clouds of war are forming in the world, right? So, in the early days of the war, after the colossal mess that was the appeasement, Maine and many others like him from all over the UK, kind of seeing these storm clouds forming, enlist. In Maine's case, he joins the 5th Light Anti-Aircraft Battery. But, but before that, in 1938, Maine had volunteered to the Officers Training Corps at Queen's University, where he previously studied law. So he goes back to Queen's University to join the Officers Training Corps. And now, like I just mentioned, he had studied law there. That's where he became a solicitor. But to quote Damian Lewis, he says he simply couldn't abide drill and mindless square bashing, and in short order, the Queen's training officer had concluded that he was unpromising material for a combat regiment, undisciplined, unruly, and generally unreliable.
Wait, he said that about himself?
He said that about, so that's the training officer saying it about Paddy Mane.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense as opposed to being like, yeah, I have too much of a problem with authority, so goodbye.
Which is, I'm so glad you said that. So I find that comment hilarious only because of comments from his subordinates later. Um, that totally like that's the exact opposite of who Patty Mane like grows up to be. So anyway, that's how he basically joins the 5th. Again, Maine, like many of his countrymen, join up because of this strong sense of duty and like this idea of what is right. But also, Maine is looking for a little bit of adventure, and he is super frustrated by this sort of stalemate that seems to have plagued the initial stages of the war. According to Irish Post, there are those that dub the time between 39 and 40 as the phony war because like things just weren't happening. Like there's a lot of kind of hurry up and wait and then nothing would happen. So Maine, some of his friends, and then one of his brothers, Douglas, they all transfer units. Douglas goes to the RAF and Maine goes to the Royal Ulster Rifles. And this is where things about the hurry up and wait start to change a little bit. First, a couple of things have to happen though. There would be the invasion of Denmark and Norway by the Wehrmacht, and then the blitzkrieg of the German panzers through the formerly impenetrable fortress at the French Ardennes. That which was followed by the march through the streets of Paris in early 1940. So war is definitely making its way into the forefront here, right? Secondly, and probably if I had to guess, most importantly, the new Prime Minister of England would take over, Winston Churchill, and he alone would alter the way the British Empire, and by extension, everyone else looks at the war. This idea of appeasement from his predecessors was thrown right out the window with his belief that you, quote, cannot reason with a tiger with your head in its mouth.
It's a hell of a quote.
Right? So Churchill is, for his part, a big fan of this idea of elite forces. Commandos, if you will, who can get in, get out, are mostly self-sufficient, and not a big fan of sitting still and like just waiting for armies to march up and like knock on the front door. Um, so Churchill kind of starts advocating for these smaller light groups that can kind of punch their way through things, right?
And this is separate
Um,
than the guerrilla warfare.
Yes, it is separate than the guerrilla warfare in what it does, but it also does engage in guerrilla warfare.
Okay.
So it's kind of dual purpose. And you'll find out later some of the other things that they're involved in. So here's where we're at. While Maine is with the Royal Ulster Rifles, or quite possibly a little bit earlier, he meets a man called Ian McGonigal. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is the only time that I'm going to be cool with the spelling of his name. It is Eoin. And for all of our listeners at home, I am married to an Ian, and it is Ian. And it's a very big deal in our house, but to each their own. This relationship with McGonagall would pretty much define Maine for the rest of his life. Um, just want to point out it's 1940. Maine is a Northern Irish Protestant, while McGonagall is a Southern Irish Catholic, and that is kind of a big deal in the next 20 years. Kind of a big deal in 1940. We could talk about that on in a different story, but I just wanted to bring that up to show that for these guys, your belief systems and where you're from and who you are at the end of the day came down to, at the very core, what kind of man you are, and nothing else mattered. And that I think is really important to Maine and McGonagall's relationship. These two are like peas in a pod, thick as thieves, if you will. Where Maine was considered a gentle giant in school and often shy or reserved, not to say that he like didn't stir the pot or raise hell, especially when he was drunk. McGonagall was exactly what you would expect when you think of a charming Irishman. He would get them into trouble with those pretty eyes, and Maine would get them out. And in my opinion, everybody needs a friend like that. And I think if I'm honest, a lot of my love for Maine comes down to his devotion to McGonagall and how you see it in every aspect of his later relationships. To clarify, they did not have a romantic relationship, nor is there any real evidence to suggest that Maine played both sides, as some authors state. I'm saying this because I don't care one way or another how one chooses to live their love life, but I do care when things are exaggerated or lies, just flat out lies are told. And a lot of Maine's story is both of those things. So when I started learning about him, some of my first encounters were with things that were exaggeration or just straight lie. And
Mm.
I wanted to know the actual like person. I wanted to understand like all of the things. Like these guys, not a single member of the SAS needed any exaggeration on who they are or what their life was. Like their stories are big enough without it. So sorry about my side quest vent there. It just bugs the snot out of me when we
Oh, I
have to
mean,
lie to make a story bigger, you know?
look at so many of the stories I tell where I'm like, hey, you know this great thing? Isn't this amazing? All lies.
Pretty much, yeah. And that's for me, that was like, holy cow. Everything they say is either a lie or an exaggeration, and it is so not necessary in this case. Like, there's another one coming up here in just a minute, so I'll get to it. Now it's around June of 1940. Commando Number 11 is formed, and so the boys they leave the Royal Ulster Rifles, and both May and McGonagall volunteer and find themselves in Syria, of all places, because this is a world war after all,
Yeah.
under the command of a one Colonel Petter. Now, for the sake of time here, I'm going to give you a really short, really broken down version of their time with Commando 11. But basically, they train on the Isle of Arran. So they train in Scotland for action in Syria. So just like that, let that sit in your pocket for a minute, which okay, here we are. Um, they do this extensive training in all sorts of things, all sorts of landing, all sorts of guerrilla warfare, all sorts of um, what's the word I want to use? We'll say decommission of things. And then they're sent to the Litani River, which is situated in Vichy-run French Syria. So their goal on the Litani River is to take and hold a bridge. This bridge is crucial for the advancement of the 22nd Australian Infantry Brigade. Like this whole idea is that if this small group of men can take and hold this bridge long enough for the Australian infantry to get there, there can be this larger force of like an invasion, a full invasion army that can come through in this direction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that I'm hearing you.
So it's like a multi-country plan here. Like we're all working our part to get this invasion force there. However, they face a ton of issues from the get-go. They're being dropped off in these landing craft via the water in the worst possible conditions that you could face. They lose a ton just in the landing. They're fired on by those they consider friends because, let's be honest, the Vichy-run French government was just a puppet government. And so Maine and his men are looking at this like these are guys, these are our allies. Like these men that we're firing against, we shouldn't be. Like they had a real moral issue with it, but also we want to live. So here we are.
Right.
So they're having just tons and tons of issues. And then the other big thing that is like this monumental loss for them is they lose their fearless commander, Colonel Petter, who by this point, after all this training and all this time Maine has spent with him, has seen him as this remarkable leader and a friend. And so Colonel Petter takes Maine and McGonagall into his unit because for him, Maine and McGonagall were exactly the type of man you needed for a commando unit. They are independent. They don't really listen to rules. Like the high command can't really stop them. Um, they're self-sufficient. They have this like what they call later is a devil may care attitude. But they're also incredibly devoted to the task and incredibly devoted to their men. So Colonel Petter's like, I can take these two and use all of the good things that they have and train them to be the best that they can be. And so he does. And so for Maine and McGonagall, losing Colonel Petter was like kind of, and you have that one boss you just absolutely love, and then they retire and they go to Hawaii and you never see him again. Kind
This
of
this
like
sounds
that.
very Angie, have you gone through this? Because this is an
Yes.
extremely precise example.
Yeah, I love my boss, and he left me for the state of Hawaii, and I'll never get over it. But I will see him again. He's still he still texts me on the regular, so we're good. Anyway, um, so just because Colonel Petter was who Colonel Petter was, let me give you a little backstory about his time, like their time underneath him, leading up to the Latani River action. Maine would write home to his mom and tell her how much he liked being where he was, where there were no women to fuss over the mess. And in one letter, would he would tell them he writing home, he would tell how he and McGonagall would start their fires, saying, quote, "The coal is in very large lumps. To split it, we just fire a revolver shot into it, and it cracks wonderfully." Maine and McGonagall are Colonel Petter's weapons officers, so there's like no lack of weapons or ammo around. So, to split the firewood with your revolver seems just like the best way to use our time. Um, and McGonagall was more than qualified to deal with Maine when he'd had too many to drink. Maine might get rowdy and start causing problems, and McGonagall would just point his pistol at him and say, "I'll shoot you, Blair." And that seemed to do the trick every single time. That doesn't mean that the walls of the house they were staying at weren't peppered with bullet holes from all their wild nights.
Good.
I'm just gonna give you that visual. Like they're having a great time. Um, Lewis, like I said earlier, he says in his book that they have this sense of devil may care attitude, and that possessed like these two guys that character trait alone caused their men to love them even more. And it gave them this sense of like, I don't want to say immortality, but this belief that if they're with Maine and McGonagall, all is going to be well. And so we will follow you to the very depths of hell because they'll get us out. Bottom line. But to really send this story home, the previous New Year's Eve, so during all this training, um, Maine had been a bit heavy on the bottle. And one of their young recruits, who also happens to live in the same house with them, found Maine to wish him a happy New Year's, when in short order, Maine punches him in the face and into a wall. So he's having a go. Pretty sure at this point, McGonagall steps in and sends Maine to fetch some water. And while Maine is gone, McGonagall gets the young recruit out of the house, but not before Maine fires a few rounds at them. When they return home, because this is where they live, so like the next morning they come back, they quote, "Found Maine alone in the house, largely sober, with all the windows shot out and surrounded by 36 small bottles of sherry brandy, one side of beef, one leg of lamb, and two loaves of bread." They pose the obvious question, "Blair, what the hell did you get all this stuff? Get up the tracks and hide the lot." So at some point, After McGonagall got the younger gentleman out of the house, Maine gets it in his head to go raid the brigade headquarters, at
Oh
which
my
point he
gosh.
steals all he can find. Lewis goes on to say that they had just managed to hide all of it and patch up the windows by the time the local police arrived to investigate. Incidentally, when Maine woke up the next day, he had no memory of the night before because when Maine saw the young officer, he said, "Who hit you? Just tell me, and I'll short the bugger out." And I can only imagine the look on the young officer's face. Like he has come to the realization he that Maine doesn't remember hitting him, but Maine is going to go and protect him now. Now, a little while later, Colonel Petter confronts Maine saying, quote, "By the way," so this is like a few days later, "I know who broke into the brigade HQ on New Year's Eve and stole all the drink." To which Maine says, "Oh, do tell, because it was a great mystery at the time." And for Petter, that was the end of it. Like, he got his point across. Maine knew he knew. The end. Problem solved. We're never going to talk about it again. And Maine, you're not going to pull this crap again. So, now that we've got our time in training sorted out, fast forward back to Petter's death at the Latani River. After he dies, the command of Maine's unit falls to a man called Keyes. We're not a big fan of Keyes. Maine had thoughts about Keyes, kind of surrounding these orders that Keyes puts out during the Latani River action that Maine sees as suicidal sacrifices. Like, they're not going to win at this moment. Why are you sending men there? You're just sending them to their death. And so Maine had some real big feelings about this. And he doesn't like Keyes. And Keyes, in return, doesn't like Maine. Um, this part is a bit murky, but as I understand it, one night while Maine and McGonagall are playing chess in the officers' mess, Keyes comes in and Maine ushers him out on the end of a bayonet.
Oh,
Yeah. Discipline action follows, and Maine kind of gets a mouthful and just goes about festering his hate for Keyes. I think I said this in in the first part of the story, but Maine hates bullies. He does not like loudmouths, and he's not a fan of like self-proclaiming people that just only have fabulous things to say about themselves. Like he's a man of action. Show me, don't tell me. And he also has an authority issue with superiors who act like they are actually superior. And this highborn officer was that. I think his real problem with him was that you were this son of an aristocrat. You became an officer because of that, and now you're just going to look down your nose at everybody else. Like we're all men, we all put our pants on the same way. And
right.
so like that's kind of the source of his beef, but then it just gets bigger and bigger. Um anyway, but the thing that doesn't sit well after Petter's death is that between the training and fighting, his unit had found a dog. And our boy Maine loves animals. And this dog kind of becomes his unit's mascot. While they're fighting at the Latani River, one of the officers shoots their dog. And Keyes doesn't really do anything about it. Like doesn't what are you gonna do? The other officer thought the dog was tiresome, and to Maine that was like the biggest absolutely not you could possibly do because the dog wasn't tiresome. He was our dog, he belonged to our unit, and you had no right to shoot him, which honestly, fair.
Right.
This doesn't sit well with Maine. Keyes is in action on it, nor the other guy who obviously shot it. And just a few nights after Keyes was invited to leave the officer's mess via the bayonet, someone comes to the conclusion who the dog killer was and attacks a one Major Bevel Charles Allen Napier. Now, Napier has no real proof, but he tells Keyes that the huge unknown assailant was Maine. And even Keyes at this point is like, I'm not sure about that, but if that's what you say, okay. So Maine takes the rap and gets RTU'd, which means he's basically sent back to his former or parent unit. Um, no one actually knows who attacked Napier. But Maine takes the rap either way because he's not going to let any of his guys take the fall, regardless of who does it. Nobody knows. Maine never says it wasn't him. So that was kind of the end of it for him. Um, he's being sent back to Britain because he's being returned to his former unit. And on his way home, Maine is hospitalized in Egypt with malaria. I don't think we've talked
Oh,
about malaria in a minute. Um, it's here that he meets a nurse he really likes, and they have great conversation. The nurse writes to his sister to let everybody know he's doing fine, which I thought was really cool. And it is also here where he learns of an expeditionary force that's being raised to head up and train guerrilla army for the Chinese to help fight the Japanese, who at this point everyone thinks is going to join the Axis, like at any moment. And he lets McGonagall know, hey, like you should go to China with me. This sounds great. Technically, it's Burma, where their training camp is going to be. But it is also here at this hospital and not in a prison cell like all the stories say that he meets A1 Captain David Sterling. And with that, Maine becomes a founding member of L Detachment, otherwise known as the SAS.
oh, wow.
And that'll be my story next week.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So David Sterling did not pull him out of a jail cell, just to clarify, like all the stories say. He visited him in the hospital.
A little bit more noble.
A little bit.
But
But
I
at the
will
same
say,
time, like,
I was going to say there's something more romantic, more idyllic to pull a founding member of the SAS out of a jail cell than a hospital because I when I think of a hospital bed, I'm like, you seem a little puny versus you seem a little tough.
yeah, and I mean I get it. So there was this long-standing belief that he did go to jail for his both his ushering keys out of the mess hall on the end of a bayonet and then this assault of this other gentleman. Um, but he never did. And even Keyes said, I wasn't in the mess when that happened. So like there's all these this is what said everybody said was happening, but even Keyes himself was like, Maine didn't do it. Like his personal journals, by this point, Maine was already like in by the point that other officers were noticing some issues, Maine was already in the hospital. Maine had been RTU'd like a month before and was sitting with malaria in Alexandria. So on the one hand, you have like this really, you're right, romantic view of like that wonderful scene in The Mummy where Evelyn goes and pulls O'Connell out of the prison cell. And that's their meet cute. Um, but then you also have this idea that like David Sterling knows for a fact Maine has been RTU'd. He knows he's going to be court-martialed. He knows all of these things could potentially be going south for Maine, but also like you have a unique skill set that I would very much like to use in the desert. Would you join my unit? I mean, either way, whether he pulled him out of a hospital or a jail cell, Sterling saved his career one way or the other. Like just by chance because
Right.
he wanted him. So yeah, that's my story of the early the early years of Maine's career.
Nice.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take us on a wildly different place.
I'm
Um,
so excited. Let's go.
okay, so I am going to, okay, so in the episode where I covered William Riker and Holy City, the Holy City cult, um, I mentioned somebody in passing. I mentioned a lawyer named Melvin. I think I called him Belly, but is apparently is pronounced Belli. Um, and
Whatever. I liked Belly.
but then it was just like that meant in middle school he was probably called Melly Belly.
Yeah, I probably was.
Um, but so I mentioned this lawyer in passing that William Riker had. And then later on, a friend of mine, Wendy, sent me a one-liner about this lawyer. And I went,
Okay.
oh, I need to do a deep dive. And then I went, wait a minute, I know this name. Oh, it's the same lawyer. So
Oh, that's
today I'm
awesome.
going to do a deep dive on Melvin Belli. although now
Melly
he's in
Belly.
my head as Melly Belly.
Yep.
And my sources, Gwern.net, the bio of Melvin Belli, Found SF, Melvin Belli, King of Torts by Art Peterson.
Torts, like the little pie.
Okay, but tort is also a legal definition.
Oh,
So
okay.
same spelling.
I'm hungry. Okay.
Apparently, you haven't had breakfast, right? Like, so these are things.
Right.
Um, IOOF Sonora, Melvin Belli, Noe Hill in San Francisco landmark number 9, Belli Building. Okay, so we're going to start in July 9, July 29th, 1907. Melvin Belli is born. He's born to a prosperous family in Sonora, California. He's the only child of Caesar A. and Lenoe Moron Belli. Caesar is a prosperous banker and rancher whose family had immigrated from Switzerland right after the Civil War. And from what we understand, Melvin really admired his father. He's not as fond of mom. And mom apparently dressed him in little Lord Fauntleroy suits.
Okay, to be fair, I wouldn't be fond either.
But I have a feeling you have to do more than just come up with atrocious outfits to be not so pleased with.
Honestly, because it's really, yeah. Agreed. Agreed.
Now, here's where I get a little in the woods, or the little woods, in the weeds, but I'm doing this on the off chance that this means something to you, because this is your neck of the woods. The family lived in an apartment on the east corner of Washington Street and Linoburg Street.
Yes, it does.
Now, this is above his maternal grandparents' pharmacy.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. I'll go take a picture for you.
Thank you. Dr.
You're welcome.
Julius Louise or Lewis and Anna Christina Moron. Now, during his youth, he's drawn to these grandparents. He's fascinated by medical collections of his grandfather, the apothecary jars in the drugstore. His grandmother, Anna Moron, is the first female pharmacist in California.
Cool.
So little
I
did you know that.
Yeah. There now I have questions. There is a building downtown that
Yeah.
still has the tile in the ground like when you walk through the front door that says pharmacy. It
Yep.
hasn't been a pharmacist for 55 years.
There
But I'm
hasn't been a
wondering,
pharmacist here in 55 years.
yeah, I mean, we have other pharmacists now, but not there. It's an
I know.
antique store now. Yeah. We've been brewing our own potion for the last 55 years. Mama says.
His uncle, Otto, carries on her business.
Okay.
So they kept it in the family, at least for a bit, until you got there, and then they just up and left. Um,
I'm not 55 also, so there's that.
I mean, so 1920, the family moved to the city of Stockton, where he's named valedictorian of his school at Stockton High School. He graduates in 1925. This man, just to set the stage, excelled in debating, acting, and writing for the school paper.
So he was a born lawyer then.
You would think. Now, he ends up running into a little bit of trouble when he's caught hosting a beer party in the high school newspaper office.
In the 20s.
Yeah. Now,
Love that for him.
he's suspended and they threaten to withhold his diploma. Now, his dad successfully sues the principal for Melvin's reinstatement.
Love that.
Now, this incident impresses Belli, who had long since decided to become a lawyer. And Belli graduates from the University of Berkeley in 1929, where he only got kind of average grades. And after he travels around the world for a year, he attends the law school at Berkeley as well.
Okay.
Now, it's in 1941 that he starts attracting attention because of his aggressive representation of people who've been damaged in some way.
So you said 1941?
41. So we're jumping a little
Okay.
bit. I'm gonna
No, I'm
kind of
just
go
making sure I had my years right there
right.
because
Now, there's going to be a little bit of jumping back and forth because there's a lot of nuance that I want to get in. And so that nuance is going to come in where it made the
you
most
got it.
sense. But yeah. Now, he he starts getting this attention because he's focusing on people who've been injured by products, by services, whatnot. Um, he has this creative skill for developing courtroom techniques to present the cases. Before this, tort or tort law, which is what this is presenting, the damages for being injured, has not been advantageous. It hasn't been profitable. It's kind of been looked down on. Nobody's really doing it, right?
So no ambulance chasers.
No ambulance chasers. And it's funny you say that because he's reported in saying, I'm not an ambulance chaser because I got there before the ambulances did.
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of the person we're dealing with, okay?
Okay.
Um, his fame spreads far and wide along this practice, and Time magazine calls him the king of torts for his groundbreaking work in personal injury action.
Okay.
And it's around this time that he represents William Riker of the Holy City Cult.
Okay.
Now, to kind of set the stage for who he is, he, right after he graduates law school, has this life-altering experience. And it's at this point, it's the height of the Great Depression.
Right.
And
Okay.
he gets a job with the Work Progress Administration. And he's riding the rails with hobos and he's reporting on the circumstances of this uprooted and growing underclass.
Okay. That's kind of cool.
I mean, if you're a dude and you would feel safe doing that, that kind of seems like a great adventure. Now, on the job, he witnessed the Los Angeles police clubbing Oakleys as they got off the train. So it doesn't seem like a lot's changed.
Nope.
And this gives him the desire to balance his representation of the rich and famous with this extremely heavy dose of standing up for the people that folks have never heard of.
Right. No, that makes sense. Good for him.
So I love this duality. Now, I probably should have said this earlier, but he looks like a movie star. He looks like a lawyer from Central Casting.
Oh, I'm so bummed out. When you described to me that he was dressed like little Lord Fauntleroy, the image I had in my mind is so different.
He's got a square jaw. He's got some portly
Okay.
good looks. He's got this deep, booming, sexy voice that observers noted he could play like a symphony when he performed in front of a jury.
Get on it, buddy. Good for
So
you.
when you think of the movie-esque lawyer, it is based off this human.
Love it. Okay.
And that's why when I had jury duty, I was like, these guys suck. Turn the channel.
Yeah,
I
I don't
want
want to
another
watch
true
this.
crime.
Yeah.
His outwardly manner, how he projects himself into the world, just nails the lawyer stereotype. His trial techniques, they're incredible. They are extraordinary.
Okay.
Now, more than anybody else, he is what they called the father of demonstrative evidence.
Okay.
Now, in his courtroom appearances, he is supporting all of his efforts with photos, movies, scale models, human skeletons, animals, and prosthetics.
Okay.
Now, he's bringing stuff in. He wants the jury to sit up. He wants them to lean in. He wants them to pay attention to what he's doing and saying. In one
Fair.
case, he's pursuing damages for a woman who lost her leg in an accident. And on the first day of the trial, he brings in this wrap package to court that looked like it could be nothing other than a leg. Now, remember, his client is missing a leg. He's known for shenanigans, and he has this big leg-sized box.
Leg size boxed. Okay. Got it.
Throughout the trial, the jury's captivated and fixated on this box.
Fair.
And so during his summation, Belli unwrapped not the woman's leg, because again, the leg is missing, so this could have been said leg, but her prosthesis, passing it around the jurors and proclaimed, "This is what my client will wear for the rest of her life," adding sarcastically, "Feel the blood as it pulses and flows through her veins."
Ooh, dramatic.
Oh, this man leaves no stone unturned.
Has some flair, if you will.
Speaking of flair, after he wins a court case, he would raise the Jolly Roger flag over his his building and fire a cannon mounted on his office roof to announce the victory and impending party.
We live in the wrong time. How many of our stories have somebody with a cannon in the front yard, and now we have somebody with a cannon on the roof?
I mean, we had Cassius Clay with his cannon. We had Shelley Bauman meet the wrong
With
end of
her
a cannon.
cannon. Oh, you're doing another missing leg story.
Dang it, I didn't even mean to.
That is amazing.
Oh, I
Did
should
you
have
hear that,
included.
Alessandro? She's doing another missing leg.
And I don't even have syphilis in this story.
Dang, but we had malaria. So
We
there's
did.
that.
We did.
Yeah.
All right, we're
Not
gonna
nearly as
zip.
fun as syphilis.
No, but a missing leg. They come up more often than I feel they should in history. We're gonna zip up to 1964. Now,
Okay.
there's a ton of legal skirmishes that Belli is involved in. The one that generates a crap ton of attention for him was when he represented pro bono Jack Ruby, the assassin of Lee Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey
Pro
Oswald,
bono.
the man who killed Jack Kennedy.
Okay.
Now, you remember how Belli said that William Riker wasn't seditious, he's just insane, and you should just leave the ravings of a crazy lunatic alone.
Let the man be. Right.
Yeah. Belli said that Ruby was a crazy little man who should be judged not guilty by reason of insanity.
I mean, he's got that. He's working it, you know?
I
If
mean,
the
look,
angle
he
works.
for you and I, but the judge and jury don't agree.
Okay.
And when the verdict's read, Belli approached the bench with tears in his eyes, saying, "You have blood on your hands," he shouted at the judge. And then he passed judgment on Dallas as a sick, sick, sick city.
Okay.
Big
So don't go to
feels,
Dallas.
booming voice. Now, this little indiscretion of his in representing Jack Ruby doesn't sit well with the American Bar Association, and they banned Belli from membership. And it didn't bother him much. He didn't really give a shit because his response was being rejected from the Bar Association is kind of like being kicked out of the Book of the Month Club.
I was gonna say, do you have to belong to the American Bar to be a lawyer? Like, I don't feel.
I don't know. I thought you did, but to hear him be like kind of and like maybe you're not. I thought getting kicked out of the Bar Association was akin to being disbarred, but I didn't look it up. I just assumed and didn't.
Yeah, I'm curious now because I wonder if it's. I wonder for us non-lawyers if it's more of a social thing, like a
Mm,
social standing type thing, than it is an actual like relevant to you getting to continue your career type thing.
yeah. Well,
Interesting.
anyhow, not looking it up and looking it up later when nobody else will hear my responses. Um, Belli, as a human, he enjoys really good food and fine wines. He also loves attractive women,
Shocking.
and this includes many of his celebrity clients. He has a lifelong love of acting that earned him minor roles in several movies. He was in the 1968 Wild in the Streets. Um, the Beatles had, or the Rolling Stones had a movie in 1970, Give Me Shelter. He was in that. And he also appeared in the television series on Star Trek.
That's awesome.
Now, he plays a corrupter of the youth in this episode, and I think it's his line that referred to it as the worst Star Trek episode in the entire series. But if you Google that phrase, there are some staunch contenders for the worst episode, and everyone has big, big feels.
That feels right.
Now, it is Belli in 1969 who decides that Altamont would be a good venue for the Rolling Stones concert, which is historic. And on December 20th, 1969, the Zodiac Killer sends Belli a letter wishing the attorney a Merry Christmas and also hoping to retain enough self control to not claim a quote, ninth and possibly 10th victim.
I'm sorry. So, like, Merry Christmas. I don't plan to commit any crimes this week. Um, P.S. Can I keep you on retainer? Is that like what the
Yeah,
goal here is?
pretty much.
Okay.
But he never replies back. Like Belli replies back like via the paper because there's no return address. The Zodiac never responds back.
Okay.
In October of 1976, he puts out a book, My Life on Trial, an autobiography. In January of 83, he has another book, The Belli Files. So this
Oh
man
my
is
gosh.
like notable. And I should have mentioned like he's representing all kinds of people. He's representing like Zsa Zsa Gabor and like all of these famous humans.
Okay. He
Um,
probably would have represented OJ.
Honestly, if given the time, December 7th, 1989, he files a $15 billion class action lawsuit against Union Carbide for the bull pull incident.
The bull pull?
BHOPOL.
Hmm. I don't think I know what that is.
Before I speak out of my ass, let me Google it. It's in India when a pesticide plant exposed highly toxic gas
Oh,
to a ton of people.
okay.
Yeah, I would have that was different than what I thought it was. So I'm glad I looked that up. Um, 1991, he divorces one of his wives, Leah Triff Belli, whom he now referred to as La Trampa.
Okay.
And the San Francisco or the Examiner called it one of the most scandalous, squalid, and lurid divorces in San Francisco history.
Wow, that's impressive.
I mean, but when you have somebody as charismatic as Belli and he's using the phrase La Trampa,
Yeah, it can't be anything but scandalous at that point, I guess.
oh, now it's in the 90s. Belli's career is in decline. His health is deteriorating, and he's having some serious financial difficulty because he's got these delayed or obstructed payments from many of these class action lawsuits that he won in the 80s, but they're just the money's not coming in as quickly and easily as he needs it. Even though he's won these multi-million dollar settlements, he's forced to pay his fifth wife after their divorce a lot of money.
Fifth
Yeah,
wife?
he gets married 6 times.
Okay.
If at first you don't succeed.
Try again.
Yeah. There's also some horrific damage to his building, the one with the cannon, after the 1987 earthquake that results in some severe and costly damages. The building was deemed uninhabitable and he can't afford the repairs.
Mm.
Wave bye bye to the cannon.
I wonder if the cannon's still there.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Now, he gets sued multiple times for malpractice. He's targeted for tax evasion and he declares
Aren't they
bankruptcy.
all?
Like,
Okay.
so he goes from riding the crest to the lowest of lows. This next line cracks me up. When his dog turned up missing, he offered a reward for its return of either $1,000 or 3 hours of legal advice.
Hey, you
Now,
never know. You might need some legal advice.
the consensus was that the finder should go for the $1,000.
Ooh. So we've declined. We've
Yeah.
declined.
Now, his health continues to drop lower and lower, and his death occurs in San Francisco 6 weeks after his marriage to Nancy Ho. He's suffering from pancreatic cancer, pneumonia, and he's also coming off of a stroke.
Ooh.
One of his sons, Caesar, named after Grandpa, accused Nancy Ho of murder and demanded an autopsy, claiming that she'd given his father lethal doses of painkiller. The suit is dismissed following a coroner's verdict that Belli had died of natural causes.
Okay.
Now, shortly after his death, the San Diego Union Tribune publishes a cartoon that says, I've got a guy here claiming he's been struck and injured by one of the pearly gates.
That's fitting, I think.
Yeah. Now, Belli's, I couldn't put it in today's money because it like strings throughout his entire career, but the his lifelong career results were 350 million. But some sources claim the figures as high as 700 million in winning judgments.
Wow. Okay. That he paid out in alimony.
No, 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 that he received for clients
Oh,
in representing clients, not how much he earned.
gotcha.
And
I misheard,
no, you're fair.
misunderstood.
I probably missaid. I'm going to listen to this later and be like, wow, Teresa, could you have worded it any worse?
I'll just be hard about it.
Now, while he ended up living in San Francisco for most of his life, he really loved maintaining an interest in Sonora, where he was born. He ended up keeping the title to his family business, and he mourned the loss of Washington Street's trees and crusaded for planting others.
Love that. We are Tree City, USA.
He urged for the preservation of the dome and railed at those who wanted to move the administration center out of downtown Sonora in the mid 1970s.
That's funny. The administration center is still in downtown Sonora.
And for me, I'm like, this doesn't mean much, but I knew this would mean something for you.
Yep.
He would regularly visit his hometown of Sonora, and on every trip, he'd stop at the IOOF cemetery on Lighton Street, where his maternal grandparents are buried. And
I
all
have two missions today. Okay.
you do. And although he never spent more than a few days a year there, he was well liked in Sonora and over the years received many honors from their Historic Society, Chamber of Commerce, and Tuolumne County civic organizations.
Cool.
And when he passed away, at his request, he was buried in the Sonora IOOF cemetery in the Moran family plot. He loved the law and the limelight equally and left behind a legacy of both creative and controversial lawyering.
Creative and controversial lawyer. I love this for him. How fun.
Yep. And that is the story of Melvin Belli.
I will forever call it the Storvin.
The Storvin. Yep.
That's a fun word. Can you send me the spellings and I will get you the pictures?
Yes.
Thank you.
I will do that. Um, if you've enjoyed this Storvin and you're thinking, there's a Storvin they haven't covered, but I feel like they really would enjoy it, then you should email us at unhinged.historypod@gmail.com or hit us up on TikTok. I believe Angie still posts on our behalf on Instagram.
I'm trying. We're getting there. I'm
Okay.
having some, yeah.
Look,
You can reach out on us at TikTok or
yeah,
Instagram. Instagram's just not as posty as TikTok is.
as posty. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking, hot diggity, this Storvin means a lot to all of us, then you need to share it with your favorite controversial
Lawyer.
person who would be a
Yeah.
good lawyer. And on that note,
Hey,
what?
both of our stories today had lawyers.
They did, didn't they?
Hmm, look at us.
Fantastical. On that
Cool.
note, goodbye.
Bye.